Good afternoon once again. The last time we met, we began by discussing qualitative research, and I tried to explain the different types of qualitative research to you, and I went on to also give some explanation on, if you remember, on the types of qualitative research and why we do qualitative research, the differences between qualitative research and quantitative research. Today, what I'll try to do is to continue from one of the methods that we discussed. That was case study. So I'll go to case study and then start from there. I mentioned that case study is a study of a bounded system. I remember I mentioned that. Do you remember? Okay, I mentioned that case study is a study of a bounded system, and I mentioned that it can be done over time or it can be done at a point in time. And one of the things that we also discuss about case study is the fact that it looks at multiple sources of data: observation, interviews, audiovisual materials, and documents and reports. So I went on to discuss how case studies are usually structured. Always there is a background, like every qualitative research, that sets a place for, or set the pace for the discussion of the theme. So when you have a background, the stage is then set for a theme to be discussed. So the issue you want to discuss will always be explained and understood in the context in which it was built from. So for example, this case about Antiakosia, for the first paragraph presents some overview of our Antiakosia, and the second paragraph discusses some of the issues that we want to study. So by looking at it and examining it carefully, you realize that you can understand the second paragraph better by having a good understanding of the first paragraph. And I emphasize that that's what case studies do. Case studies always try to make sure that when is developed, it gives a contextual perspective of the issue that the thing is occurring, the phenomenon is occurring in. I hope you understand that. Okay. Now, one thing that we also said about cases is that it's good used for studying a contemporary set of events in which we don't have control of. You cannot tell what people are going through until you have done interviews with them. And when you are doing the interviews, you cannot anticipate what they will tell you all the time. So you can't control the phenomenon. So by stepping into it, you let the people express themselves. A qualitative researcher immerses himself into the issue, and the issue itself tells him about what he wants to know about the phenomenon or the set of questions that he's asking. But if you look at it for a quantitative research, has some degree of control. You even have a control of what possible answers you want the respondent to choose from. So when we say you don't have control, we are trying to say that to what degree, what's the degree at which you can be able to steer the research or influence in a particular direction. So, and it comes from the fact that the quantitative person always sees research as having a separateness between the researcher and the subject. So the subject can just report to him without even he being there. But qualitative researcher always has to be there and then learn from the subject. And I also explained that there are different types of case studies. You have got exploratory case studies, explanatory case studies, and then descriptive case studies. Now, most often, descriptive case studies always require a theory to guide the structure of the case. It doesn't mean that when you find something new, you will not add to it, but a theory will guide you. So a descriptive case study requires a theory to guide the data collection. The theory should be clearly stated in advance and be reviewed to form the basis on the design of the descriptive case study. So whatever elements you are trying to study, you study it within the particular theory that is defined for you. Exploratory study is good for studies that there is little known about the area and we are stepping in. So we are allowed to explore. And because we are exploring, we can get diversity of opinions and issues, and then we try to do a synthesis of what is relevant for our case or the question that we are trying to answer. I hope you understand me. Good. Then explanatory study is doing causal investigations. So those of you come from a critical realist or realist background, causal explanations are important to you. You want to be able to see what causes this and leads to that. So you see that most often you try to build either descriptive case studies or explanatory case studies for a critical realist or a realist, because causal explanation is what they draw on. It doesn't mean that you cannot do exploratory. You can do exploratory, but in that sense, you want to make sure that you establish that these are the parameters or these are the factors that actually influence this. Good. Now, these causal case studies are not causal experiments, or that a quantitative person may be doing. This is qualitative. Qualitative. So don't go and say that qualitative researchers don't ever look for causes. They can also look for causes, but they'll use explanatory case studies to do that. And when we are analyzing cases, I'll teach you the differences of what you can get from this, what you can get from this, and what you can get from that. Okay. Cases can also exist in two forms, being single or multiple. Single means that the unit of analysis is to a particular focus that we can define. So the case of University of Ghana is a single case, University of Ghana. However, you can have multiple cases, a comparison of University of Ghana and Gimpa. So you have got two cases there. Then we can also have a single embedded case. Embedded cases that is University of Ghana, we are comparing departments within University of Ghana. So the issue we are trying to study, we have got different versions of it, or different categories or units or classes of it within one big case. So you can have an embedded case study. Then you can have a holistic case study, in which is the whole institution. Lecturers' perceptions concerning students' attendance to class. They are seeing it as the whole university. They're not trying to differentiate that it seems accounting students lecturers tend to like their students more than marketing lecturers. Not that. But if you are trying to break them into different groups, social information studies, geography, computer science, then you are trying to build embedded. So because each of them, you're analyzing the issue in them. So you can have a single embedded, and you can have a single multiple embedded, and that is one of the most difficult case studies to do. Multiple embedded. So you have multiple case studies, and for each of them, you are looking at different clusters inside, of different units inside. Why do we do multiple case studies? Is it because of explanatory power, or is it because we have to satisfy what the positivists want? That you have no numbers, we have more confidence in the data? No. It's much more about the fact that by doing multiple cases, we help to confirm and enhance the reliability and validity of our research work. So that the things that we find out is not just by what? Chance. Thank you very much. It's not just by chance. It's like the gentleman that went to a town and was going to look for a fruit, and he went at summertime and thought that all the fruits are bad. And I've forgotten that if you come at springtime, it could be different. So multiple cases helps you to have multiple scenarios and test whether your explanation would hold as the scenarios change. As the scenarios change. You want to classify a leader of a bank as a proactive leader, and you have only one issue: how he held the bank maybe by another bank. Then you can't have that is the only one you are using to be able to say he's a proactive leader. It's not enough, because if you want to show somebody has a characteristic, you need some time to observe. Unless doing the measure or the purchase of the company, there are different scenarios that he kept on showing that he's proactive. So I can then have different units of analysis in there, or different sub cases within that, or scenarios that I can use to enhance or back my explanation that this gentleman is proactive or this lady is proactive. Good. Now, how do we do case studies? Case studies always begin from having a question. I told you this. Have a question in your mind. What question are you trying to answer? What is your focus? What is the question that you are focused on? So have a question in mind. The question will tell you what you should look out for. The centrality of every research is the question that is being asked. I think I mentioned this the very first time I met you. The centrality of every research is the question that is being asked. The centrality of every research is the question that is being asked, because your research will differ from mine based on the question I asked and even the scope in which I asked it from. So we have identified the research question that will help you be able to understand what case you have to select. Then, for example, last week we were discussing a number of issues here. We talked about culture. Someone wanted to look at culture and bureaucracy in the public sector. So by having that question tells you that you have to find a scenario like that to be able to depict it. If you go to a public sector agency and there's no bureaucracy, even though you think that all public agencies should be bureaucrats or should have bureaucracy as a form of organizational culture there, if you don't find it, then it doesn't fit your case. Unless you want to compare one leader who, when he was in public sector A, agency A, he brought organizational culture of bureaucracy, and went to B, he couldn't do that. He brought something different. So what makes A fit for bureaucracy and what B not fit for bureaucracy? So then that could be a very interesting comparison that you could actually do. Good. Then determine, are you doing multiples or single? Are you doing single embedded or single holistic, or multiple embedded or multiple holistic? I think most of us will be doing single holistic. That's the easiest way to do that. For example, Aku was talking about the fact that you want to look at international branding. Now, if I take a company like, let's say, Guinness has different products. Or let me just take another company like Blue Skies. Blue Skies are different products. And I want to study what the tropical drink of Blue Sky and maybe pineapple and ginger. And I want to see how they brand pineapple and ginger vis-a-vis how they brand tropical. If only the marketing managers are different, it will be very interesting to compare. Or I could actually look at the selling of pineapple and ginger in Kumasi versus the selling of pineapple and ginger in Eastern region. So Ashanti region versus Eastern region. Or I can do it in Accra versus Lagos. So there are opportunities for you to be able to explore these concepts very, very well. So please, don't ask yourself, am I doing single or I'm doing multiple? Now, when you have done that, you have to select your groups or the people who are going to be possible respondents to your study. I was told by my supervisor that for a very good organization, a very good case study, you should talk to a minimum of 25 people. But it depends on the organization size. If you have an organization that has a micro, that has about 4 employees, what are you going to do? Maybe some customers may join, some competitors in the same locality, some of the places that he or she has taken loans from may be interesting for you to go and talk to them. So that you can build a holistic picture of what the person talks about, what the person is going through concerning your phenomenon that you have studied. Okay. Now, participants can also include past employees. I've done some studies that I had to go to a past employee of the same firm in a different company and ask him questions about when he was in the firm. Because of my timeline, I was doing a longitudinal study. Some timelines I wasn't there, but a manager who was there has now moved on to maybe Bank of Africa. So I have to go to Bank of Africa and interview him on issues that he did or decisions that he took when he was in what? The other bank. So it's welcome that you can be able to select a diverse number of participants. But have they got enough knowledge, sufficient knowledge on your issue? Now let me take it back again here. We mentioned that you should identify the research question, and then you should determine the type of case study you are going to choose. But another thing that you should also understand is that sometimes you can come up with parameters for selecting your case. If you are doing a purposive study, meaning that the kind of study you are doing, like I'm trying to do a study on social marketing of Ebola in Ghana. Ebola is a peculiar issue, so I have to be purposive and know the agencies I'm going to interview. In that scenario, when I approach those agencies, I can't just do I'm doing a random sampling of any hospital in Accra. No, I have to know where were the target institutions that Ministry of Health and the Ghana Health Service were working with, which are the institutions that they were working with. So I may go to Ghana Health Service, talk to them after that, get the leads snowballing to go to the next person to be able to talk to. Then when I get to them, I can be able to ask questions. They can also give me the next person I should be able to talk to. But most often, you may not have, sometimes you may not have this peculiar situation that one particular organization is the only one you should interview. Sometimes there are a lot. They have all gone through the experience. Where do you start from? You can have a cutoff point based on your parameters you have in mind. For example, in the lab here, we are doing a study on micro-entrepreneurship and mobile phones. Our key questions that we are asking has led to 3 criteria for selecting the micro-enterprise that we will interview. First of all, you should have been in business for 3 years or more. Most often, if you study literature on entrepreneurship, you realize that firms do not go beyond the 3rd year or beyond 48 months. That's a statistic, 42 months, sorry, in West Africa. You don't go beyond 42 months. So I want to try, I'm starting from 3 years. 2, because we are interested in mobiles, we should have been using smartphone and particularly, the internet for business for at least 1.5 years. 3, because it's micro, we are using a World Bank definition. So you should have employees paid employees less than 5, not 5, less than 5, because World Bank's micro definitions is less than 5 to 0 to own account, 1 person is micro. Then from there you move to the small, then you move to the medium, and you move to the large. So it means that my definition, my parameters have been set. Now when I step into the field and I start asking questions, I've done what we call strategic selection of cases. So I've done strategically selected my case purposefully to be able to fit the parameters of my study. Now I can go beyond that and say that the nature of my variables, because I want to study something on the internet, the nature of my variables should lead me to firms that by chance have exported before, by chance have some website or have an email address, and then the nature of their operations requires them to either talk to somebody beyond the geographic regions of Ghana, because that will lead them to even doing something with internet. I hope you understand what I'm trying to say. So in that sense, I've also added another parameter. Now, some authors call this either strategic selection or theoretical selection. So certain ideas or certain concepts or certain variables within your theoretical framework is telling you to make sure that you make every firm that is selected meets these criteria. Otherwise, you eliminate them. It's not good for you to start in the case, finish it, and then when you start doing analysis, you realize that because it doesn't fit those elements in your theoretical framework or your research framework, it falls apart. For example, what if I go and choose a firm which is less than 2 years old and I want to do year 1, year 2? What happens to me to year 3? I hope you understand what I'm trying to say. So please, think very carefully when you are choosing your cases. Now let's continue on. So case studies collect data from multiple sources: observations, interviews, audiovisual and documents and reports. According to Creswell, these are the 4 key sources of qualitative data. Other authors dropped the audiovisual material, maybe because of when the book was written. More contemporary books, recognizing the impact of social media and all the other platforms that have come up and the internet, now add audiovisual to it. So you can collect data from TV. How will you do a study on the impact of advertising on 5-year-olds or on children? Maybe your cutoff point is 10 and below. The TV is part of it. The TV is part of it. Okay. Now, part of what you have to also do is try to make sure that you triangulate your case study. It means that you're building a case story not from one person's perspective. I don't like cases that if I look through, I see only one person and the MD said, and the MD said, throughout the MD said. So you spend your whole weekend with the MD. No. There is somebody beyond the MD in the company. Sometimes a competitor can be interviewed. Sometimes an enthusiast, a journalist has written a story about that particular company can be interviewed. Sometimes workers, employees who are on the ground level, operational level, can be interviewed. Watchmen or security guards are one of the interesting people to get a lot of data from. And I keep on telling my students that always talk to the security one. The things they see and they witness, especially if you are doing things on leadership studies and want leadership lifestyles. See, when they get down from the reception and they are chatting, they chat in the open at the canteen place, the man will hear. And when they get down from their car, they are chatting, he will hear. So he has rich information about the organization that sometimes you yourself, you might not be able to get it from the formal process. When my formal process, writing a letter, going to talk to them, so I always tell some of my students that use mystery shopping techniques. The marketers, I think, understand that, where you show up at the place as if you are a customer to collect and experience the service. Like you are doing a study on a hotel, experience the service yourself and see whether you can be able to match what they tell you when you interview them with what you're actually going through. But if they see your face too much, you'll be suspicious. So maybe you have to send a brother or a sister, pay their one night sleep there, if only you can. And then they should go and collect the information from you. Now, we have data triangulation, when we are using multiple sources of data to triangulate. And then we have investigator triangulation. In fact, in triangulation, we have so many forms of triangulation, but I'm just talking about these two. The investigator triangulation is when you find out other authors who are working on the area. I was collecting data on busy internet, the time they were at Circle. And then that time Estelle Kofi was, Estelle Sowa, the head of Google now. She was the one heading it then. And when I finished my study, I said, last 2 weeks, another student came here with similar questions on why we do this and why we do that. The report is available, but this is the person's contact address. You can contact the persons to answer some things that you didn't ask on that person's document. So you can contact the person. What is she doing? She's giving me snowballing. She's leading me to another respondent. But actually, what I'm going to do is I'm triangulating from different reporters to be able to get a good story that it's not, sometimes because it's qualitative, you can be biased in your interpretation of what you want to collect, and you may not see everything. One of the interesting way of collecting data is sitting at the reception or sitting inside, waiting, just not talking to anybody, just sit there, waiting. This is not talking to the security man. I'm just talking about sitting in there and experiencing customers going in and come out. Especially when they tell you wait, it's not always all the wait that is discomfort or stressful. Sometimes you can learn a lot whilst you are sitting there observing people. Because observation is a way of collecting data, but most often we don't take it serious. Observation can help you to be able to tell whether the person is telling you the truth or not. Why is it that when you asked him all the questions, he was just slouched in the seat and you was answering? Asking one particular question, then he sits up. And what did you say again? There's some issue there. I hope you can understand that, yeah. Or some of the questions you say that, as soon as you ask, can you stop recording? Because he wants to answer, but he doesn't want to be on record. That means that there's some other dimensions of that issue that you want to be able to try understand. Good. So please, data triangulation and investigator triangulation is good. Then analysis. What are you going to analyze? We'll discuss that one after you have collected your data. Please, if you don't collect your data, when we are talking about analysis, you will understand what we are discussing. Analysis is difficult to do if you don't have your own data. So please start collecting your data. So I'll jump analysis and I'll go to compose your report. You have to put the report together and make it very rich and interesting. But you see, with qualitative research, analysis and data, we call it, if you look at Mouse and Huberman, it's like a triad, or it's just 4 variables. It's like they're in a circular complex interaction. Whilst you are collecting the data, you have got data collection, data reduction, data display, and then conclusions and verification. This is what this is an analytical model, but it happens as you are doing the work. And just that at each stage you are presenting the case, one of them is stronger. But as you start presenting the case, you start thinking about it. If somebody tells you that I don't like my manager, more means you already know that there's an issue of something there. So there's a preliminary form of analysis. But in analysis too, you have got levels of it. You have got the first level that you have to find the descriptive codes. Then go to the next level, find the topical codes. Then you look for inferential codes. After that, you look for conclusions. And in the conclusion, you look for memoing. You don't read analytical. It's just the same way. You see, one of the things that you don't realize is that when you have your quantitative data you have brought, you do descriptive results. How many male, how many female, you will do that one. After that, then you start looking for, if you're doing a CFA or an EFA, you're trying to look at the factor analysis, which factors hold, which factors don't hold, what best measures the variables that you have. Then you move to another level of taking your hypothesis to confirm them. It's the same thing you are going through in a qualitative manner. So don't think your presentation of results is analysis. That's why a lot of students, MPhil and PhD and masters alike, and then undergrad, as soon as they finish presenting the qualitative data, they think they have analyzed, then they go to, so from the above you can see that analysis need to have memoing. Memoing is when it's a point of ideation, when you see a link between what you saw on the field and the literature you put in the literature review. So you ideate, you see that this thing is like a light bulb, but it opens up to realize, this thing that the person is saying is what this author is saying. So you look for points at which you are deviating, your finding is saying something different from what was in the literature review, or is finding congruence to what was in the literature review. Then you can find new lessons, or you can confirm existing lessons or findings. That is why you are supposed to present it in April 6, so that we have time to do analysis. Some of you will do qualitative. Most of you will do qualitative, maybe. And some of you are confused between qualitative and quantitative, and you have been staying away from qualitative because you don't understand, and it causes fear. But it's very interesting and easy to be able to do it, if only you give yourself that time, that opportunity to learn it. I don't want to deviate. If I deviate, I'm not going to show you some qualitative data, but we'll discuss that one after you're collecting your data. So collect your data well. What did I say? Collect your data well. Okay. But I'm happy that you are learning it. So when you have done that, you compose your report, and then after composing your report, you evaluate validity and reliability to find out whether your methods give out the results you are looking for or new results. You try to find out whether there are some errors in it. Sometimes when we say errors in qualitative data, you are trying to say that there are diverse opinions about an issue, and you want to do more. Either you have to sometimes have to do more data collection to clarify and see where is the truth coming from, or where are there lies. Qualitative data, you are interacting with the person, so that person can lie to you, so that you can continue buying fried rice. Because you are interviewing the person, you are still providing fried rice, and he is going to keep on lying. Okay, so we'll go through these things. We'll go through them as we move to the next session. Hence, let's see what the key challenges with qualitative research like case studies is the fact that which is the appropriate case to choose, and that is the question I think everybody is asking me. Yes. Now the reason that we all ask that question is that we don't know where to start from, but this is the best answer: purposeful or purposive sampling. Focus on what will fit the purpose of the research. The degree, the centrality of every research is the question that is being asked. So I look at the question and I use it to guide me in choosing the case. If I want to understand why some firms succeed and why some firms fail, I need one firm at least that has succeeded and one firm that has failed. And maybe to make it more interesting, 1/3 firm that has partial success. So partial failure, partial success. So you see, I hope you can appreciate the example here. So you choose the case based on what?
The firm that has failed, would they be willing?
No, you don't go there and say why you failed. It's about challenging. They went through a challenge and they abandoned it. It's not every firm that took their product from Accra to Kumasi that succeeded. Even in the same company, some products didn't work in Kumasi or didn't work beyond Accra, or had to be packaged differently and even advertised differently in Kumasi. Some products were created in Kumasi. When they go to Accra, they did better than Kumasi. People too don't understand. So if it is marketing, you look at that strategy. Financing of firms. Sometimes some microfinance institutions work better in some communities than some other communities. So why? Health policies. 2 districts. You give them the same money. You give them the same implementation budget. They went there and one succeeded in implementing the policy. One didn't succeed in implementing the policy. Why? You are saying jealousy. Yes. Sorry.
No, I was going to ask whether all the questions require why questions.
No. Case study looks at how and why. Can do what. But specifically, Yin talks about cases looking at how and why.
So where the case, the organization is not too comfortable for its identity to be.
Oh, they'll give you can use a pseudonym, like you call it Ejako and Bites Consult. Give it a name. Some companies called Bank A and Bank B, they will never even give you an. But if you read between the lines, you can be able to read. Sometimes others also try to make sure that the background is not that very specific. Bank A began in this, then they'll add 1 year to it just to be able to give. You see, if the year will not affect the analysis, you can change those figures a little bit so that you can identify the firm. But if it will affect the analysis, then you're in trouble. For example, if you are looking at leadership styles and you're starting from the time the bank began, you have to begin on the actual date. Or some people actually stay away from the mentioning the date to say the first year of their operation, the second year of their operation, so you can't tell. The difficulty of case studies is that sometimes the event is contemporary and is changing with the events in the nation. So when you are mentioning and discussing the issues, you need to also give the context of Ghana in the time the thing was occurring. So you are forced to mention the company or forced to mention the timeline in which the thing occurred.
So for mine, what they are saying is they will be comfortable if they are sure it will not go outside the boundary of an academic piece of work.
Oh, academic piece of work, it will not go over a boundary. But academic piece of work means that it can be published. I hope they understand it. But academic can be published, not as a newspaper, but as a journal article, but with a lot of, don't worry, with a lot of pseudonyms in it, so you cannot actually identify.
With this, it will be clear to identify, you can tell.
You show the trick how to do it.
I don't know how to do it. Maybe you have to change the organization. Okay, in the choice of multiple case, how many cases are important? It's more about the meaning the case gives to us or lends to the issue we are trying to study. Like I give an example to my students and they always keep on laughing. You see, you know tozafi?
Yeah.
Good. Now tozafi is a very good meal for some people in Ghana. Not everybody likes it. However, let me just give an example that you go to night market and you see the Ghanaians eating fried rice and then a foreigner eating tozafi. Now, your first value of interpretation can say Ghanaians like fried rice, foreign students like tozafi. Then you go and ask the Ghanaian student, that's your first interpretation. So you go beyond that and you say, I don't like my first interpretation, I want to know more. I ask the Ghanaian students and I find the Ghanaian student, two of them, one eating tozafi and one eating fried rice. You ask the fried rice person, he tell you that, oh, one of the answers could be that he just likes tozafi, he doesn't like fried rice. Another person eating the fried rice can also say that, oh, my father lived in UK and we used to eat a lot of fried rice. So when I came to Ghana, I also eat fried rice. Now, so you are seeing that the exposure is what is bringing the differences. You go to the foreigner who is eating tozafi and you ask him, why are you eating tozafi? So, oh, tozafi is a delicacy in Uganda and we lived in Uganda for a long time, which is true too. So I eat tozafi because I learned how to eat it in Uganda. And you see, exposure still play a key role. But you see a foreign student not eating tozafi but eating fried rice and eating it maybe in a hurry. He tells you that by the time I got there, what was available is what I bought. Now you have two explanations: time and the time to get the food to eat, or your hunger condition, and then exposure. Now, if you're not very careful, you can just use only one as the explanation and go ahead. But in qualitative research, we want to expose all those two different definitions of why somebody eats this and doesn't eat that. Then, when we finish, as our lessons, we come up with what we call propositions. Then the quantitative person picks those propositions and tests them to what degree across the university do people eat tozafi because of exposure or because of the condition of hunger. I hope you understand what I'm trying to say. So the qualitative will show the degree to which the explanations can be generalized on a larger population and which one holds better. But the qualitative would have established the different options that exist, and the quantitative takes over. Can we appreciate the relationship between the two? Okay. So the more cases you have got options of having what? Different explanations. After some time, you get what we call saturation of cases. Or saturation of data. When the data still tells you the two options and there's no other option, you end. But budget-wise, you can't go and say you're doing 30 cases. It will be strenuous, it will eat into your time, and you cannot document. There's not enough pages for your PhD. So you become realistic and we use what is within your time. Some phenomenon are so peculiar that only one case will work. For example, automation of clearing systems in Ghana Port Harbour. You are going to talk about GCNet. About whatever you say, it will be GCNet. That is what you talk about. Is that not true? But GCNet is not only done in Ghana. They have been succeeded in doing it in other countries. So maybe if you had money to go to the other country, you can go and compare what is happening there and what is happening here. How far do you go in collecting data? If the person who can answer it is a Konongo, will you go? Or what's the timeline? How far will you go in terms of time? A student from Manchester, one of my mates, was doing a study on corporate governance, banking reforms and its impact on corporate governance in Ghana. Now, when he got out into the public sector, the banks, Bank of Ghana and all the other banks are there, to ask them about what is whether you can get data. They told him that the people can answer your question if you look at banking reforms. If you want the 80s, banking reforms in the 80s, the problem you have is that almost all of them are dead, or they are in a state that their parents will not, or children will not let you talk to them. So why don't you bring it into the 90s? Some of them are still around. They have even left the Bank of Ghana to other private banks or rural banks, and they are heading them. So that may be a good way to start. So he moved from 80s to the 90s, and then he moved from the 90s to late 90s. Then he found it very comfortable. So sometimes the boundaries can change because of what? Access to the data, which is sometimes a limitation or delimitation to the study. Okay. So now we are going to look at forms of qualitative data. We have got observation, interviews, documents, and text, audiovisual. I would take them one by one. Anybody who is doing a study should establish the context in population. Where is your study taking place in? Sometimes you are choosing a case. You know, you mentioned that you want to do something on a public sector institution like Ben, and you're talking about, is it metropolitans or municipals? And you may choose not to be in Accra. You can go beyond Accra, so your context now changes. But your population can be a given, either the region or can be the whole Ghana. Establish your data collection method you are going to use, and then establish the sample. Because sometimes the type of method you are going to use will inform the sample that you can have access to. Good. And with qualitative research, I was telling you that at least having the multiple voices or people in your interview sample is always good. So let's take them one by one. Some of the methods we mentioned earlier. In the field work, you are going to go out and collect data. In the business school, you can talk to your supervisor, it can give you a letter of introduction so they can approach the companies. Okay. But if you are doing an assignment for me, you can go to the Operations and Management Information Systems Department. There's a lady there called Benedicta. She will support you in drafting the letter, and I can sign it. So that's one way of doing that. Good. Because you are doing it for this class. If you go to another lecturer, he may not want to do it for you. Okay. Now, another thing that you can also do, you have to take notice, is that what are you going to do there? Some companies will ask you, how many weeks are you spending there? How many days? What time should we? If you write those things in your letter, the letter too much, they may not even listen to you. You have to be specific, but also general. Like a student doing bad accounting practices of SMEs, you don't write it that I'm doing bad accounting practices. So the firm will ask that, why did I get selected for a bad accounting practices? So you have to say accounting and SMEs challenges. See, you put it, you coin it in a good way. Okay. Now, in another example, somebody may be doing a study that he wants to be able to get access on a particular product. But if you write the product name, they won't listen to you. So you can write it in a different way, targeting the department, and so you get your information. Whatever it is, you have to have some wisdom. Don't go and pour your title. Some titles are difficult to understand. Economic investment and volatility and this and that, using the GAN something approach, the Keynesian perspective. And you show up at even some of the banks will not even understand what you're saying. This ever perspective you are discussing, they don't even know what the Keynesian perspective is or model is. So don't make it simple. Keep it 8 words. Simple. Maximum 8 words. And then when you are asking, you are going to target, see, sometimes you can target particular people to interview, like the marketing department, finance department, HR. Sometimes you also target, you write it in general, then the MD will, that you want to invite the company to participate in their study, you are doing a study on this and that, then the MD will manage to who should respond to you. And sometimes it will be good to go and do your own groundwork there and ask which form of the letter should come in. So they will tell you that write the letter into 2. One to go to an MD, and then another one write copy. So you bring that one to me. So that when I go to the MD, I can show to him that, oh, this letter came the other day. So I even have a copy. But if you write to MD and MD keeps on traveling, he will never mean it for it to go down. So you want to keep that in mind. So what will be done on the site? If you want to interview people and you're going to their, if a factory, you're going to their shopping, their production floor, You have to be very careful you don't go and write some of this. They won't allow you. But if you just keep it that you'll be talking to this and that. When you are discussing, now you have seen you are after 2 or 3 times of interview, he now knows you that much. He can tell you, go and sit in my office, go and do this, go and do that, and then he can interact with you better and give you more access. And interference, will you be disrupting the normal routine? For example, if you go to a bottling plant, are you going to tell the issue? There's in the bottling plants, you have got what we call sighters. Sighters are those who look for broken heads. So you go there, they are attentive, looking at it, and the belt is going on. They go and say, "Can I interview you?" He's a casual worker too. What time? What would the duration? Please, don't go and write, I need 3 hours, I need 2 hours, maximum 40 minutes. In fact, sometimes 30 minutes. It's important, when I teach you questionnaire design, I'll explain that it's important that you know the questions you are going to ask. The ones that can be asked and from the receptionist, ask and fill that part before you show up to the person. Because some of us, even while the person is sitting in front of you, are you male or female? Are you Mr. This? Now you have been given 15 minutes, and the 15 minutes you want to spend that 15 minutes on are you male or female? Okay. Yes.
From an experience, we did a study, and we went to a community, and one of our assistants was fond of asking that particular question: are you a male or female? And it's like the moment he asked that question, the person starts laughing, and somehow it sets the tone for them.
Yes. I like what you have said. The context will tell you where to do it. In some offices, if you ask that question, you put the people off. So you have to know what you are doing. And at your age group, if you are doing it, it may come out with laughter. But if you are telling an undergrad to ask somebody, are you male or female, it could also be interpreted. You see, you always have to remember that as a qualitative researcher, culture always follows you. Culture always follows you. There's a lady that went to a British MP's office he wanted to work with the MP, and every time he comes, he said, no, you can't meet the MP too. But application from the gatekeeper, the secretary, will always cut it off. So the secretary was preventing this African lady from getting access to the MP in UK. Now this young lady was wearing a dress, and she was sitting at the reception waiting for the MP to come because she didn't want to go and they will tell her that she's not available, you can't meet her. And the MP walked in and she was wearing the same thing, the same design. Maybe hers was more expensive. And she just turned to the lady that, oh wow, you got this, where did you get it from? And that I said, what are you doing here? That led to it, and he entered to do the work and do the interview. So please choose your dresses well. When you're going to do your interview, what I'm trying to say, be presentable. Because that's what may give you access, not your letter. Good. Now, what will be the duration and the frequency of observations? If it's a factory or a place that has high activity in terms of moving of human beings up and down, coming in, like go to state office, the queues are there, and you want to stop a person who is serving someone, can you imagine what will happen to you? So you also have to choose dates and times that will fit low activity days. But sometimes I also suggest that you should observe all the days. So some days you can go there with not interview. Now the security man knows you, so you can just walk in and then say, well, I was coming to see you. I'm just a follow up. You're not following up. You're just going to loiter around and just linger around and see what is happening. You can enhance the data collection procedures and get more data. So please be wise and be smart in collecting your data. Because sometimes a company can cook up a story for you and to look too good. Okay. So interviews. There are many versions of interviews. And usually you are getting words, views of participants in their own words. So you are going to interview them and sit with them and interact with them. The first type is unstructured interviews, which is very exploratory in nature. You have just a topic in your head and you just throw it out and then it sets the tone for the questions. So other impromptu questions can come on as we do that. Very, very qualitative in this approach. Partially structured is the topic is chosen, the questions are formulated, but the order is left to the person. For instance, sometimes it's important. Instead of you starting from how many employees you have, then you realize that the guy comes in and then you start talking about, he's discussing something on someone on the phone. Some of these suppliers, they don't do very well, they don't do this. Instead, you start from the supplier angle. So what's the nature of supplier relationship? This example, then you use the example to give you more information. Your objective is to be able to talk to the person and manage the person in such a way that he talks to you more. Not you talk to him more. Because you are a listener and a recorder, not a person who is going to argue. I hope you can appreciate it. So the objective here is to make sure that the person opens up. And that's why when somebody was saying that maybe the male and female question can help. You have to try to know what will help. Sometimes you can even ask the managers, some of the people who work with that person, that what are the things he likes, he doesn't like. Oh, he's a pojoba. So when you go in, you try to you try and make sure that one word or two comes in from about Pooh Jones. By the time you realize, he will let his guard go and start telling you so much. So what year did you finish? Then you are in trouble. Don't go and say that you went to the university, the school, but you didn't go there. Okay, then semi-structured questions and order of the presentation and order of presentation are determined. So they are sequenced in a particular way, and we follow that. But we allow impromptu questions to come in. It's not on some of my questionnaire, but because of what you said, I can ask a lead-on question or a follow-up question. So semi-structured can be exist. Then we have got structured interviews, which we are now moving to it's a continuum. So you are now moving to a quantitative part. More of that. The questions are set, the order is predetermined, and the responses are coded. So where do you live in Kumasi? Or where do you live in Accra? And you say that, oh, I live at Hacho. Then you write the district name. You write Hacho. I hope you understand it. So how old is your firm? Oh, we started in 1996. Okay, we are about 5 years old or something like that. When he says he's about 5 years old, 15 years old, then instead of writing 15, you write it in a category of you take 20 to this or 15 to 20. So you use categories to be able to start simplifying and summarizing your data. We call it data reduction. So you reduce the data because in your study you know that variable is not going to be a case. So you want what? You want the interval. And if you are moving using interviews for quantitative studies, you can apply interview to quantitative studies. That means that you are going to code the quantitative data as you are listening to the person. Then totally structured, the questions and order and coding are predetermined. The respondent is represented with alternatives to choose. Which of these towns do you like to visit? Then so you have to choose these towns. You have to choose from that. Remember I said that quantitative research has some degree of control, whilst case study as a qualitative measure doesn't have control like that. So quantitative studies like using first choice questionnaires and based on random sampling, whilst we use purposive sampling and primarily we use open-ended questions or unstructured questionnaires for qualitative studies. Please be patient. You are not there to fight. You are not there to argue. So please be patient when you are doing the study, when you are talking to them, and don't be judgmental. If it doesn't support your political party, don't fight the person. Allow the person to express himself or herself whilst you are doing the interview. And also avoid leading questions too much. Sometimes it's good to listen, but it's also important that you control. Otherwise, somebody will discuss a lot of things that will happen in the 80s. Because for a very long time, you have not had somebody to talk to. So now that you are going to bring the issue, and that particular year, when this MD came, what he did to me, he will discuss everything. I hope I'm not boring you. Then you say, oh, you're not boring, continue. So once you are trying to tell the person, so what happened? Oh, you let me finish this one first. Oh, you are not interested in that. Won't it help your study? Then he start telling you what will help your study. Another difficulty we have with qualitative researchers is that, so when you do this, will government come and do something about it? If they ask you that question, then you know you are in trouble. Especially those of you who are going to public sector. They think you are the panacea to the issue. So if some of the studies, I remember we were doing a focus group discussion, which we are going to next. And yes, I'm coming. When we got there, the first thing our leader said is that this is a purely academic study. It will not solve your problems. It will not bring money to you. Government will not do anything about it. The only thing we can do is to submit our comments and our report, which we publish nationally and made available across the country. Whether the politician will look at it or not. In fact, the only thing we have for you is your transportation. So he tells you in the beginning, next week we are doing a similar one, and I know that in the beginning I have to announce the same story, back. Because if you don't take care, somebody has left his office in Aboso Kind to come and listen to you, thinking that you are going to bring some credit system or change the loan system or even take some taxes away. What silence?
The guidelines until end of the first one, it said to relate silence.
Yes.
So is it on the part of the person you are interviewing?
Yes. Yeah, you have to.
Ask a question. It takes a long time for the person to respond to that question. So
Not only that, but sometimes it helps people to, when you're collecting from the past, you want to also give room for the person to recollect the truth. Otherwise, you'll be putting pressure on a person will just say something to make you happy. Surprisingly, one of the studies that we are doing right now, when you ask some people that what month did you begin your company? Can't remember. But they know the year. If you saw not tell at that time, my woman Baba I mean na kojo afina kojo ba.
So in that instance, can you add observation?
Oh, you are qualitative researcher, you are recording everything you are seeing, even the weather. You are recording it. You are looking at the conditions. If you are interviewing Kayayo, and you know that it's around 2, that's the time that Abaye is coming. You should know that while she's talking to you, she's so you capture all these things. You know that some of the answers can be influenced by what? The conditions. But that same Kayayo, take her to Novotel, which is just by, give her fried rice. Oh my God. Tell you everything. Tell you what is not even true. If you're not lucky, you will bring his friends along. Okay, focus group discussions are very good for multiple participants who have to be interviewed at the same time. It helps you to get a general perspective of the issue you are trying to study. Very good for studies that are going to be quantitative in nature, beginning with a qualitative focus group to establish the phenomenon and understand the various views and possible perspectives of the issue. So that when you are designing the quantitative questionnaire, you can know what to put in as your possible answers. Very, very good. A very good marriage for it for a quantitative study. But we use it qualitatively too, to be able to get insights into what people are saying. And it's a semi-structured group discussion moderated by a group leader in an informal setting with the purpose of collecting data or information on a selected topic. Now, most often you choose your topic before you go there. You don't let them come and tell you the topic. So you should have an idea of what you're looking for. And it's a mixture of people, thereby they should be homogeneous in the experiences that they have. If you are doing a study on housewives, the changing role of housewives, and you mix a Trasacco housewife with a housewife from Choco, a housewife from somewhere in Labad, and a housewife from Laboni, and a housewife from Osu, a housewife from, let's say, West Hills. Now, what you are doing is cooking fire. You are not even using fire, cooking the fire, because by the time you realize one person will say that this, and another person will counteract with this. Some things are unrealistic to people. Somebody is telling you that he works at Ministry of Communication when it comes to he sells kinky in front of his house or her house, and you don't understand why. The person from Trasacco spends the whole day buying gifts for beautification of the rooms and stuff, and her lifestyle and idea is very different. She imports her provisions from UK shops, whilst everything. So if you go to their home today, are you eating pasta, this and that? Tomorrow, are you eating this and this? So the menu is just changing, the chart is just changing, and she may not be the one who cooks. There's even a cook. This person is coming from. So you are asking that the changing roles of housewife. She comes home. She's a mother. She's a teacher. She's this. She's that.
It's a nurse.
It's everything.
Not everything.
So it's useful when you are doing exploratory studies, and then it helps you to understand the gaps between groups. So if we're doing male and female difference or gender differences in micro entrepreneurship, what we do is that we put the women in one room and interview them, put the men in one room and interview them. It helps you to be able to get the differences better, because the women will express certain things that are peculiar to the way they run their businesses, and then the men to discuss something which is peculiar to the way they run their businesses. So you want to put the women in one room and the men in one room, in the sense of an exploratory study which is using focus group discussion. It helps you to uncover some complex behaviors. People will tell you some issues that they wouldn't have told you if it was a quantitative study. So they will tell you, why do you do this? So you can get different scenarios of why the thing occurred. Somebody will say something, it will trigger another thing. Oh, I remember I also went through the same thing. I remember we're doing now one of the micro entrepreneurship studies. A lady, the mother, the mother is the entrepreneur, but she's now finished school. She's working for the mother, and she was talking about her view concerning whether the mother receives support from the father or not. So when we asked that, the question was to all the entrepreneurs, the women, do you receive spousal support in your business? And the lady, when we got to her, said that if you ask my mom will say yes, but we the children in the house say no. I hope you understand what I'm trying to say. He said my mom will say yes, but we know that he doesn't help. So the question is, if you are doing a case study on that woman alone, it is good to interview the children in a different place, then separate them from the mother. And it also tells you that we asked the question on why are you not working? Why is your business not growing after 5 years? It's still a small micro business. He said, I'm doing it to support the home. So I have to be close to the home. Even though I've got the potential of growing and opening other branches, it will disturb the structure of my home. Because of that, so it's not that the business is not doing well. The business is doing well, but she's not doing the business as a primary thing. She just uses it as a support to the husband. I hope you understand what I'm trying to say. So if she wants to do as a full-time business, then she has to prepare to change the organization, the setup of the home, which maybe this man who is a farmer, he doesn't even have eye to it. Then we also realize that there's a difference between owning and taking decisions, or owning and just managing. So all these things come from focus group discussion. So somebody is the owner, but he doesn't have active management of the firm. Somebody may not be the owner, but he has active management, so he's working for somebody. But the guy was flying, he left the business for you. Every weekend you divide the money into two, half to the wife, and you manage the rest. So you are the active manager, but you don't own. These things will come out. A desire for ideas to emerge from the group. Now, don't use it when the environment is emotionally charged. Just after elections, you want to do focus group discussion with two different political parties in one room. Oh, it doesn't make sense. When you want statistical projections, stay away from focus group. When other methodologies can provide better information, you want to use that. If only interview can give you richer information, go to interview. But focus group is good for piloting your questionnaire. So if you want to pilot your questionnaire, you can do focus group, and after they do a quantitative. One example is that we did a focus group discussion 1 with 6 people, and then 30 and 60 questionnaires to be able to improve our quantitative questionnaire. The study was quantitative, but before we started, we wanted to pilot test our questionnaire. Okay. Where confidentiality cannot be assured or ensured, please don't do that. Let your focus group discussion last less than 2 hours. Preferably, I like 40 minutes, because when you get to 1 hour and you have got 8 people seated in a row, transcribing is a lot of work. So 40 minutes is fair. And you should do about 3 to 6 different groups. Some people use 4, so they take different set of homogeneous characteristics, all year 1s, all year 2s, all year 3s, all year 4s, or all those who subscribe to this banking product, that banking product, that banking product. So you then have 4 different groups. Then you can also make sure that how many of them are in the group. 10 is difficult for one person to manage. 8 is okay. Maximum for one person to manage as a leader is 8. From experience myself and from what some people have written on. But if you are two leaders there, like one is you are the moderator and there's one supporting you, you can do more than 8 because you can keep an eye on the rest of the people. And usually we sit in a circle so that there is mutual collaboration and openness. People, that doesn't look like you are just on one person. The difficulty with sitting in a circle is that sometimes the person sitting by you always wants to answer all the questions. And when the other people are saying, look at what she's saying, they're telling you, then they'll be whispering things into your ears. So it's always advisable that you move a little bit away. You sit here for some time, then after about 30 minutes, you move to another person. And then it allows confidence to build among the members so that they can start talking to you more. Others like to do, sit like the classroom style. Everybody is there, you're looking at the leader. So you point at this person, point at this person, point at this person. Now, that is also not bad, but with a focus group discussion, you are not creating the group cohesion very well. Sitting in a group helps them to have that cohesion, that helps you to build a very good relationship, and then have confidence to talk to you. Okay. So we'll begin a focus group discussion with a round robin question, a question that is easy for all of us to understand. So when did you start your business? Everybody will answer. Then to set up the background, why did you start it? Everybody then can share their perspective. These are very common questions that are easy, gives confidence. It's established everybody. I started with tomatoes and I moved to potatoes. I rather started with potatoes and I moved to tomatoes. So then they start seeing commonalities, confidence is building. But you knew about some of them before they came to sit there. So you build that to be able to locate people in relation to what? Other people. When they start seeing that, this guy is just like me, they have confidence in chatting with you and discussing. We were in Abozame and we're doing interviews with tailors. And these were tailors who were in an association. And when we're discussing with them, we realized that the association is helping them. They come together to build a place where they can get contracts together and then sew together, which was a very interesting idea. But then when we're getting to the latter end, one of them told us that the district officers who are there always give the contracts from government to tailors who are not part of the association because they can give them something. If they bring the association will go by the book. So they will not get that much. But if they give directly to the tailors, they get something. So I asked myself that we are very, very lucky that we didn't put one tailor from who is connected to the district officers and one tailor from association. We would have had a fight there. Because the way they were speaking and the emotions that they expressed at that point in time, I could understand that if they were sitting there, it would have been a different issue. So go and tell them, take your findings and go and advise them. So move the conversation to the key points, experiences and the knowledge. And experience is not knowledge. Please differentiate between this in the phenomenon. An experience is somebody who has gone through it. Knowledge can be gained without going through it. So please, when you are asking questions, try to ask it, is it the knowledge or your experience? So how many of you have experienced poor customer service at the banking hall? Like, when I went there, they told me I should stand in a queue, and then they put somebody, and they passed the thing behind, and I was in the queue for 5 hours, but people were just leaving. Some people I came to meet, see, experience. My brother said that, knowledge. Or I read on the online that some Ghanaians are going through problems in car bank. Knowledge. Experience is different from knowledge. Now, the same way, experience is also different from opinion and value. I can experience something bad, but I can still have high value for that thing. It's true. And yes, this is the best that we have. Let's take it like that. Haven't you heard it a number of times? Then, opinion is different from feeling. So please, these verbs are very important in focus groups. Experience, knowledgeability, their opinion or value that they assign to things, and then what? The feeling. The feeling. Two people can experience something, but not everybody become emotionally charged. But we have all experienced it. Is that not true? Good. And that means that our opinions too can what? Differ. So please understand this very well. When you finish, you bring it to close, and sometimes it is good that you, whilst you are doing the focus group, you pass questions around and confirm. You said this and this and that. Is that the same thing that Akosia you're also finding going through, or Kwame? That's if you have the same sex, different sex featured or put in the group together. But if your work is about gender differences, put the males together, put the females together. Okay. Observation. Go and look at it yourself, not your camera. Go and look at it yourself. So participant observation is when you engage fully and participate in the activities. So you get permission to sit in the class and observations over the semester. So you become a participant observer, so you participate in almost everything. So your goal is to immerse yourself into the setting so that you can experience everything they are experiencing. Beyond that, you have got non-participant or unobtrusive observation, which the researcher watches but does not participate in the groups. So you can watch them do a number of things, but you not participate in anything. Like some of you can never ask a question, never talk, never smile. Then naturalistic observation is when you observe the individuals in their natural settings. What do you mean by natural settings? Where they actually the activity takes place, like footballers. Justify your inclusion. You go and watch them. Then you select them. So you do naturalistic observation. Then you have got covert observation, like a nurse. You don't know you are there. Maybe he's sitting here and conducting a research in disguise. That lecturers are here and they are teaching students where rain is falling and the roof is leaking. You write the story and take it away. But covert observation happens when you are doing a research and the people don't know you are there. So you are observing them covertly. Then simulations is when you tell the subjects to try to act like, what do you think about the district chief officer? Can you demonstrate how he talks to you? When he comes, he pulls his trousers up and he looks at us into the glass like that, and we don't like it at all. Especially as soon as he gets down from his car, he starts shouting, Kwame! Meanwhile, you are going to enter the building and you see me. Why should you shout? You see how simulation takes place. When you're collecting data, there's a lot of simulation that takes place. Because there are so much, if it's an emotionally charged issue, budget allocation for district assemblies, they'll see how they fight. And when this district officer came, he did this, we didn't like him. But then they'll relax. Please don't be drawn into their gimmicks. Just relax and listen to and observe them. Because you are getting data. Everything they do is data. When they finish, you say, oh, we hope you are not being too unnice to you. I hope you won't write those parts. You see, I was in one company when I finished the case study and I sent it back to them for them to review. The woman who was heading the unit said, so the things we even said over lunch, you wrote them. He said, yeah, I was still observing. And I was just joking about this one. You wrote it. He said, it was a big issue. I wrote it. Now, they don't realize that everything is data to us. Yeah. Why is it that I asked the question in the office, you didn't say that, but when we go to lunch, you said it? But that's if you are fortunate. It's not every company that give you lunch. This company, when I went there, they told me that I should join them for lunch. You know, some companies have got lunch, a canteen on their premises. And I enjoyed it a lot because I got so much data there. Okay. So simulations are also important. Good. But with the quantitative approaches, you have the major one, survey. Survey, I think almost all of us know. It's like you're trying to do a study on a sample to be able to predict what? A phenomenon in a given population. So you select a sample and then you record answers from the sample. Now there are different types and approaches of conducting surveys. You've got a mail and self-administered questionnaire. You've got the web surveys. You've got telephone interviews, and you've got face-to-face. All of them have got their advantages and disadvantages. If you are doing telephone interview, you have to make sure that you don't keep your questions more than 10. In fact, it's not fair to the person who is listening to you. Keep on, is it this? A, B, C. By the time you get to E, you have forgotten what you said in A. And then face-to-face interviews are very expensive. But face-to-face interviews also come with a lot of stress. I went to a company doing my PhD and I was collecting data. When I got there, And I sat at reception for 30 minutes. After that, I entered. Then the MD came to sit there and said, oh, he got up and went to the window, looked down. Then came to sit down. So you brought the Ford F-150. I said, yes. I said, okay, let's sit down. I said, so this Ford that we bought, we were 3 boys collecting data for a project we're working on. The Ford left us up. It left us at post office. We pushed the thing. And when we go to the office, we chucked it at some place. So when he looked down and he saw it that Ford, he was thinking that maybe because we are bought Ford and we're wearing ties and things, means that we are very expensive people. So it was giving him a perception. I said, so what if we took taxi? They will sit there for 2 hours. So he said, you bought the Ford. And I said, oh, so bringing Ford changes the questions or what I'll tell you. I think sometimes the nature of business, whether you are worth my time. So maybe bringing Ford gives you prospective client in the future. But it's the truth. They do that a lot. They do that a lot. So please, you want to be careful. When I'm doing it, it's very expensive too, because you have to go to each office and talk to the people there. I'll stop here. The last thing you have to look at in helping you select your data, collect your data is sampling, then questionnaire design.